Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Monday, October 20th, a little before 8:15 at night, and this is our daily recap video for our 3 YieldMax funds, but it's actually dropping down to more like 2 with very limited coverage on the third. The first is Ulti, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund. The second, LFGY, the Crypto Industry Option Income Fund. And then we will just quickly touch on SLTY, the Ultra Short Option Income Strategy Fund. Reminder, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1, posting all things related to the ETFs that I cover and the videos that I make. I also just finished making and am currently uploading and will be premiering very soon the video for Coney, Misty, NVIDIA, and Tesla, calling it the $1 billion club. So if you have any of those funds and you would like detailed coverage, the series starts today. I will explain. There's a little hiccup right off the bat, but we'll get into that in just a second. So let's take a quick look. Ulti, green day. We like a green day. We liked it better in the early part of the day when it was at 523, but anything positive, we will take it, up 0.58%. LFGY had a heck of a day, up 2.61%, and at one point they were up over $38. So we are loving some LFGY. They are on a very nice run. Obviously, we were higher 3 months ago, but after dipping down really, so from our low in September to now, we're up almost 10%, $3.39, and that isn't including all the payouts along that way as well. So we've been getting distributions and risen 10% off of that September low. Oops, I forgot. We'll touch on it real quick. And then SLTY, the short fund, actually went down today by 1.07%. So we'll look into the details of the individuals on our spreadsheet. Now, normally, what we do every day at 5:30, we go scroll down about halfway down any of the YieldMax ETF pages and click on the intraday trades download, and it will bring up our trades for the day. Unfortunately, today they are having some issues, so this is it. We know they made trades today. We have been in contact with the people at YieldMax. They're now aware of the situation and working through it with their web developer to get things fixed, but these are just their early morning trades on their 0 DTE funds. If you've ever watched any of these videos, you know there are hundreds of trades every day, so I don't have that information for you. Unfortunately, I'd love to give it to you and pass it along if I could, but I can't. So we will go over what we can. The video will be a little shorter than usual. Generally, we would start with the trades and talk about how much money they made or lost. So today, we can't do that. So we'll just go through the holdings and we'll move on. And hopefully, they can get things figured out by the next trading day. And if they get the information out, we will go ahead and backfill it so we have everything. All right, so Affirm, the first one in Ulti, was up 6.1% today. Their calls sold at 75 are still 4% out of the money. Bitmine Immersion up almost 8% today, and they've got calls at 55, still 2.2% out. Sitting with $63 million in cash, another $447 million in American government obligation funds for a little over $500 million of somewhat accessible money. It's not 100%. A lot of that is earmarked for these put spreads that we'll talk about. But you know, we've talked with them back and forth. They're saying, my thought process would be you only need the dollar spread amount for whatever quantity of contracts, but they say they keep it for the full amount. Either way, Cipher Mining was up 6.1%. Calls at 22 are still 10.5% out of the money. Centene Corp, this is the first of those put spreads. There's 3 of them, no shares. Their $36 sold puts are 1.1% in the money. Coinbase went up 2.3% today, and they've got calls at 342.50 that have gone into the money by 0.3%. They also have calls at 352.50 that are 2.5% out of the money. And they've sold some puts. You're going to see that a lot more today or this week than in previous weeks, selling puts to help pay for the long puts that are downside protection. So it's sold the 270s. They're 21.5% out of the money. We generally are expecting all these sold puts to always close out of the money. They're just way out of the money, just as a way to generate a little bit of income to help pay. I don't know if you want to call it to help pay for the protected puts or just to help put towards the distributions. Income's income. CoreWeave's the big loser today, down over 7.1%. Their calls at 143 or 12.5% out of the money, and their sold puts, again like the first one, are at 110 are out of the money, 13+%. Figma was down 1.9%. Calls sold at 61 are 9.4% out of the money. Galaxy is our next put spread with no shares. Selling the 3750, they are 5.4% out of the money. Hims and Hers making a little recovery. They had a really rough week last week. Down up 3.1%. They've got calls sold at 54, 58, and 65, anywhere from 5 to 26% out of the money. They've also sold some puts at 42, 18% out of the money. Robinhood was up 4.5%. Their calls at 140 are still 3+% out. Iron Limited down almost 2.5%. $62 calls are 4.6% out of the money, and $72 calls are 21.5% out. Lucid Internet Group was up 1.3%. They've sold calls at 22.50 that are 13% out of the money. Lululemon is the third put spread with no shares owned. Their $165 short puts are 4.3% out of the money after today's close. MP Materials Corp was up 2.6%. They've got calls sold at 89 and 91.50, 7 to 10% out of the money. Strategy was up 2.3%. This was one of the ones that was a little tighter coming into the week than the rest. So their 292.50s went into the money by 1.3%, and their 305s are still out of the money by 2.8%. Palantir was up 1.9%, still about 1.9% out of the money on those 185s. Pony AI up 1.7%. $20 calls are 1.8% out, and $16 sold puts are 18.5% out of the money. Quantum Computing was down 5.7%. They've got calls sold at 19.50 and 12.8 and 15.7% out of the money. They've also sold puts to help pay for their long puts. They're at 15, 13% out of the money. Rigetti was down 6.6%. They've got calls sold at 47, 50, and 51, all for this Friday, anywhere from 8.5 to 17.7% out of the money. They've also sold puts at 37 to help pay for their long puts, 14.5% out. Rocket Lab was up 1.6%, taking their $67 calls into the money by 0.5%. Their 67.50s are still 0.2% out. And then they have also sold puts at 52 and 53, 21 and 22% out of the money. Rocket Companies was up 2.8%. $17 calls have gone into the money by 0.75%. New Scale Power down a fraction, 0.09% or 4 cents off of Friday's close. Calls sold at 46, 55, and 57, anywhere from 4 to almost 29% out of the money. And they've sold some puts at 36. They're 18.5% out. SoundHound AI was up 0.2%. They've sold calls at 20.50 and 22.50, 7.5 and 18% out. Their sold puts are also 18% out of the money at 15.50. Symbotic was up 2.8%, taking their $69 calls into the money by 2.1%, and their $71 calls are still just out of the money by 0.7%. They've sold puts as well at 55 and 57, 19 to almost 22% out of the money. And finally, ending with the biggest gainer of the day within the fund, Upstart up 8%, taking their $49.50 calls into the money by 1.4%. And they have sold puts at 39, 22% out of the money. All in all, it resulted in an increase in the market value of the shares of $23 million. So that's not the fund didn't necessarily go up by $23 million because every increase is going to increase the cost to close out the sold calls, but and every decrease will decrease the cost of those. Every decrease will increase the value of the long puts, just like these increases will decrease those values. So it's a very intricate changing every time things move up or down. It also has an effect on the options. And I actually just noticed that we don't have a formula right there, so we can fix that. Not that it affects anything we just talked about. All right, Ulti started off the day with a NAV of $5.17. Looks like we closed around $5.18. When we started the day, we had a $3.1 billion assets under management. On Friday, people were selling out of the fund. The outstanding shares dropped by over 12 million, close to 13 million shares, down to 606,707,000. Our average first call after today, first meaning closest to the money, is still 4.6% out of the money. Average second is more than 11%. But we also, without having access to the trades today, we don't know what all got closed out and adjusted. So most recently, they paid 9.08 cents per share. Last Thursday, these guys announce on Tuesdays now, so tomorrow we will, around 7 o'clock in the morning, we will find out what this week's payment is for Ulti. All right, next we're going to move to LFGY. Again, we don't have trade information or we would have gone over it. So we start, Bitmine immersion was up almost 8%. $57 calls are still almost 6% out of the money. Now, LFGY does not trade the same strategy Ulti does. Ulti is specifically going after high yield, high IV or high IV funds, so they can pay a high yield, and they trade a collar strategy where they own the shares, sell calls to generate income, and buy puts to protect the shares. LFGY is not necessarily going after the highest IV, but they are all specifically crypto and crypto-related funds or stocks, and then they sell calls to generate income off of them. Sometimes they also purchase calls to limit the cost to close out and open back up the upside. Other times, the short calls are standalone. So next up, we have BitDeer Technology, up almost 6.5%, taking their $25 calls into the money by 2.2%. CleanSpark was up by almost 4.5%. They've got $20.50 calls, still 0.5% out of the money. Coinbase up 2.3%, almost 5.5% out of the money on the 362.50s. Core Scientific is the big loser, and we like it if the big loser is only down 1%. Calls are sold at 20 and 22.50, 6 and 19% out. Circle Internet Group was up 3.3%. Calls are sold at 145, almost 11% out of the money. iShares Ethereum Trust ETF up 4.1%. Their calls are sold at 32.50, 7.8% out of the money. They don't have a lot of money on the sidelines here. $334,000 in government funds and $4.2 million in cash. Galaxy Digital up almost 5%, still another almost 6% to go on those $42 calls. GameStop was up 1.3%. 23.50s are 0.5% out. Robinhood Markets up 4.5%. Calls sold at 140 are 3% out of the money. Hut 8 Corp, 3% increase on the day, 4% to go on those $52 calls. iShares Bitcoin Trust was up over 4%. That's huge. $685,000 increase just from that alone. No options to speak of. Mara was up 5.9%, another nice chunk, and their calls are still way out of the money, 13% with a 23.50 strike price. MBTX had a big jump today, so they $270 calls are just about 3% out of the money, and their $255 purchased puts in this put debit spread are 2.7% out. They were in the money before today. Mercado Libre. Let's see. Sorry, had to click something on a different page. Mercado Libre, 3.8% increase, still 0.6% out of the money. Strategy, 2.3% increase today, still 5.3% out on those 312.50s. NU Holdings was up 2.7%. Unfortunately, they were practically at the money when the day started, so they're now 2.6% in the money on those 15s. NVIDIA similarly started in the money because even after a 1/3% drop, they are still 0.08% in the money on those 182.50s. Opera down just a fraction, 1 penny to be exact. $18 calls are 11.8% out of the money. PayPal was up 2.6%. $70 calls are 1.1% out. Riot Platforms was the big winner today, up almost 10%, taking both sets of calls, 2050s and 21s, into the money by 6.8 and 4.5%. Really, the 2050s are the ones that matter, 6,500 contracts compared to 84 contracts. And finally, Block was up 1.7%, leaving their $77 calls just out of the money by 0.6%. So all in all, the shares within the fund increased in value by $7.8 million. At the start of the day, they had $214 million in assets under management. There was no change on Friday, so outstanding shares still 5,875,000. The NAV at the start of the day, 36.47, so they had a great increase on the day, and they just paid 58.31 cents per share on Thursday. Tomorrow morning, we will find out what they pay. A reminder from my estimate video, I guessed 59 cents for them, and I actually guessed under 9 cents for Ulti. Ulti had a somewhat decent day, so it's possible maybe they will keep that 9-cent streak going. Okay, and I did talk about how adding our new series with Coney, Misty, and Vidi, and Tesley was going to take up a lot more time, and I was going to reduce my SLTY coverage, especially since there's practically nobody invested in it anyway. But it is nice to know what the traders have a negative outlook on. So we're really just going to go down the line, and I'm going to tell you what's being shorted in the fund and where they're selling their puts. That's it. So SLTY's shorting AMD, selling 222.50 puts. AST Space Mobile selling a $79 put. BitDeer selling a $22 put. Circle Internet Group selling the 124. Enphase Energy selling the 35. GitLab selling the $44.50 put. IonQ, they're selling the $63 put. IonQ is getting roughed up. They're already in the money by 5%. They were at 82 or 83 a couple days ago, or a week ago. Kratos is being shorted, selling $86 puts. Lemonade at 46. Nebius Group at 105. Reddit at 190. RH at 167.50. Tesla at 420. And United Airlines at 100. SLTY closed at 38.95 and paid 46.1 cents per share last week. Let's see, what did I guess? I guessed around 48 cents tomorrow, so we'll find out in the morning. All right, we'll end this with a dad joke and get you guys out of here. So thanks for watching. Appreciate all the support, likes, shares, and comments. And so here is your dad joke of the day. Did you guys know that I can't get hurt by vehicles? One time I got hit by a car and it bounced right off of me. I guess I have an autoimmune disease. All right, thanks for watching. Good luck trading tomorrow. I'll catch you in the next video.